Hello, everyone. Welcome to tonight's Spiritist Study Group. It's great to be joined here with you tonight after our summer break. A special welcome to those who are joining our discussion for the first time. In this group, we explore the teachings of Spiritism and delve into the first book by Joanna de Angelis in her psychological series entitled The Currentness of Jesus. My name is Fabrício Assunção from the Spiritist Society of Bournemouth. I give a big thank you to each one of our speakers for being here with us tonight. They are Anaí Fonseca, Sylvia Gibbons, and Humberto Schubiter. Dr. Anaí Fonseca is a psychiatrist and Jungian analyst. For some 30 years, has been working psychotherapy, diagnosis, and research on the relationship between spirituality and mental health. She's a member of the Medical Spiritist Association of Brazil, where she teaches Spiritist psychology by Joanna de Angelis. Sylvia Gibbons is from the Chico Xavier Spiritist Society in the UK. She's a humanist counselor, bioenergetic, psychodrama, and deep memory process therapist, interpreter, and translator. Dr. Humberto Schubiter is a member of the Brazilian Academy of Philosophy. He's a professor, researcher, and an author. Our study group is a space for discussion, reflection, and spiritual growth where we can deepen our understanding of Spiritism and its principle. So, as we join together to study Joanna de Angelis' teaching, I invite everyone to share your thoughts, insights, and questions. In this session, we will delve into chapter 8 of the book, The Currentness of Jesus, which is called Jesus and Duty. To start our discussions, I invite Humberto to open the debate. Over to you, Humberto.
Hi, dears. It's great to see you again. And for the last time, because starting next week, I will live in Italy and will be quite busy in the new research and arriving in a new country and so. Well, I would like to start considering that Joanna de Angelis here in this chapter on duty does not give us a material or a technical definition of duty. As in many other chapters, she offers us a philosophical definition. What I mean by that is that she doesn't tell us what our duties actually are, what we should do in daily life. Instead of that, she philosophically, she makes very broad considerations about what is the meaning of human life and how we pursue happiness, fulfillment, and dignity through our conduct, through our behavior and choices. So I think that's very clever from her and very philosophical, and also a way to change or twist the very meaning of the word, because she is here not trying to give us a list of to-dos, and instead of that, she is pushing us or provoking us to think, to consider, and to actually investigate what our personal duties could be. So I think this is the main point in the chapter, and I will pick some fragments that may enforce this idea. People, she starts in the first page considering people who are irresponsible, and therefore they harm themselves and others. And these people are defined as people that do not take on responsibilities, nor do they fulfill their duties. So that's very basic, but also tautological. She's not adding anything to the concept of duty. She's just using a synonym, responsibility, or what we are supposed to do, but there is no clear definition of what it is. So still in page 39, she adds that they are friendly and kind when favored, but become rude and ungrateful if they are not treated in the way they believe they deserve. I think every word here is very carefully chosen from many possible synonyms or correlated terms. And she's trying to give the impression that normal people, they may sometimes they may look, or they may give us the appearance of orderly and just people, but they are not in fact uh, doing what they should do in a spiritual way, in a spiritual sense. They are also gracious in success. That's the last sentence of the page, but aggressive when they need to make any effort. Now, the previous sentence was about the impressions that we give to others when things are in our favor, and the impression we give to others when things are not so much in our favor, or when we believe that we deserve better. And I think that's a direct reference for in Spiritist structure or Spiritist moral philosophy is the word pride. Pride is identified in Kardec books as one of the main sources of evil and suffering. The other source, I think, is highlighted in the next sentence, which is egoism, selfishness. And to be selfish is usually related to the rejection, or to avoid effort, or to try to escape the normal growing process, the normal process of maturing yourself. Well, and I'm not going to the end. Do not worry, but only to close this first part. She also emphasized that no one has the right to benefit without working. So that's the idea of merit and effort here again, which is approaching slowly but steadily the notion of duty in her philosophical definition, in her position, as something closely related to effort, struggle, consciousness, and conscious effort, and close to the notion of assuming responsibility and being mature enough to assume responsibility for what you did. Well, then, honor is the prize that is bestowed on the victor who has worked hard to achieve it. 2 lines further, each person's duty guides them in the evolutionary endeavor. That imprints also some relativity to the notion of duty, because my duty may differ from Fabricio's duties, in the sense that we have different evolutionary paths and evolutionary endeavors. But surely that my evolutionary path will not be so distinct from Fabricio's, in the sense that we have to act morally, we have to uh, take responsibility for what we do, for what we think, for what we feel, and we have to do our best to perfect ourselves, not only spiritually, but because spirits are in matter and in society, we have to do our best also to be healthy, to be in harmony with society, to be useful, and to be a force of good, a force for good in society. And all of that in a very integral or holistic way is the basic duty of every human being. But particularly, I also have to investigate and to make the conscious effort of ever studying and investigating where I am in life, where I belong in the world, and which are my specific necessities and therefore duties in this life. And I remember one sentence from Goethe, great German philosopher that was also very concerned with this subject. And he said more or less, uh, um, I do not have a very clear memory of the sentence, but he said more or less, you want to know what your duties are, you have to check what life offers you every day, in the sense also of the invitations of life through the means, for example, of new people you just meet along life. Yeah? Or the professional duties, of course, but also the spiritual, religious, political, social duties of the time. So whatever is your direct concern, your actual concern in a moment, is in the cosmic way also your duty. Whatever is your necessity in a moment is also among your duties. So it is something that requires your attention. You have to struggle to figure it out, to solve these problems, to overcome these problems, these situations. And therefore, they are useful for your growth. And it is one of your duties to understand them, these problems, as part of the struggle, part of the effort that belongs to your life and to your evolutionary path. So I think I will end here and also hear the ladies.
Thank you,
I'm
Humberto.
sorry. Uh,
Who'd like to take the lead now? Shall I hand it over to either Silvia or Anaí?
You want to go ahead, Sylvia?
Silvia, on mute.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. If you want, I just, well, might as well, I'll do it then. Um, I just thought it was very interesting the point that Umberto made, um, that Joanna does in this article. She doesn't actually tells us what our duties are. She doesn't say what is the duty you would have to follow. And I think this is so brilliant because, from my understanding, she's saying um, each one of us have to see what our duties are according to our lives and according to what we are, our intentions, our dreams, and what we want to do and the work. Because duty is something that you have to find for yourself what it is. For each one of us, we will have something to do. I think coming back to what to say that in Spiritist teachings, it tells us that each one of us is born with a mission to fulfill. It can be raising a child, it can be teaching people, it can be working, it can be anything, different things for each person. I think, Better mentioned that as well. And I think this is so important because in a way, it's a choice of if we fulfill what more or less the obligation that we accept when we start an incarnation. And I think this is really brilliant because she says another point that goes into it, that never stop growing, always make an effort to be better, to be, achieve something in the place where, and don't be, if you achieve something, don't be happy and just stay there, move on, learn, go off, find new things to conquer. And I find this very extremely positive. And to the quote as well from the gospel that she gave here about the father who tells, the son goes, and he says, oh yes, I will, but he doesn't. And the other one says, no, no, I'm not going to go. But eventually he feels bad about it and he goes and he does work. So I think sometimes it's so we find ourselves in the situation of these two people, that we think, oh yeah, I'm going to do it, and then you don't do it. And she has a sentence as well, she says, never promise something, never promise to do something that you have no intention of doing. And I feel this kind of key here for my understanding, because um, it goes very much to that. Yes, oh, I'm going to do it, and don't do it. And if we put ourselves to say, no, I'm going to do that, I think we have an obligation to do what we say we're going to do. Otherwise, we fail ourselves and maybe we fail others. So it's a very we need to find. I think that there is a sentence as well which it says that, first you understand. Um, oh yes, Jesus proposes duty, action, well understanding in order to better act. And I think this is the key here, almost in this chapter, because first we need to know what we want to do, what we are capable of doing, make a choice. Everything is in a very conscious way to live. She's telling us to have a life of purpose, but something that we find ourselves. I'm, I may say, oh, I like to do that, but I don't have enough knowledge. I don't know exactly what I can do, how can it be done. So she says, find out, understand it, so you can do something properly. And I find this is very good, and this a lesson in life really that we should live every day. So that's sorry, Anna, you can go.
No, I think it's great because we start with Umberto opening with all this vision of spiritism knowledge and philosophy, and the way that Joanna um, opens this discussion, not telling us what is duty, but that would be easy, right, Humberto and Silvia? If she said, oh, duty is this and that, right, Fabrizio, and do this and that, well, then it's not actually helping each one of us in our individuation process, in a sense that to know about ourselves, to recognize when, as Umberto said, we are being irresponsible, when we are acting with pride and selfishness. And so to recognize this shadow within all of us, right? And to act in a sense of finding courageously and bravely what should I do? What is my duty to life? She also talks about life, right? And she uses the example of Jesus that, as Sylvia said so nicely in that sentence, that Jesus proposes action, right? The duty and the action to recognize what is our our task in terms of developing consciousness, because she talks also about alignment with cosmic order. Guys, that I love this when Joanna calls us, because I think it's so up to date, right, Umberto, Silvia, and Fabrizio, and everybody else, that we are supposed to expand our consciousness towards cosmic consciousness. And so it always calls my attention when Joanna uses this kind of word, cosmic, and here she uses to fully align our consciousness with cosmic order. But I'm beginning from the end, let's say. I just wanted to, of course, as a psychiatrist and a Jungian analyst, when I was reading again the beginning of this chapter, I said, "Wow, Joanna is here talking about the psychodynamics or the features of a narcissist." I don't know if you guys have realized that. Of course, I think everyone has, but it's always the way that each of us, right? My point of view is always from I can't help, I'm a psychiatrist and a analyst. So I was reading that and said, wow, that's all and even the narcissistic posture that we are as a society, a global society nowadays, right? And unfortunately, but at the same time, we know that we are having these opposing forces, like what we are doing here today, that is studying and searching and helping each other with this process of individuation, of bringing more light and expanding our consciousness. But we know that the opposing force is, stay in this narcissistic posture that unfortunately a lot of people around the globe are still. But I went to look at the date that the first published this book, The Currentness of Jesus in Portuguese, and it was 1989. So it's like, wow, more than 30 years ago, and it's so up to date. And I think, well, the mentor know they are up in the hill, right, looking down. So they know it's going to take time for us to realize certain as humanity and to realize our own shadows and really work with them. And I brought to you, so because I know everybody has read the beginning of what made me such an impact to see Joanna describing the narcissist posture. So I brought a little bit of the psychodynamics of a narcissist so that you can connect to what the mentor was saying in psychological terms, because she's asking us to pay attention the way that we hear when we are incarnate and when we are only as Umberto and Silvia said, looking from the point of view of the ego and trying to adapt to this world, but forgetting that we are a duty, first of all, with ourselves, with this, what let's say, our spiritual mission here, what are we incarnated for? And as you guys said so well, we have different duties, right? Each one of us, as Humbert said, has to discover my duty to my higher self, the self capital S, to my spirit, as Joanna said. What is my duty to my spirit? What is my spiritual mission? That's what I think Joanna, and of course using Jesus, because remember Jesus said, "It's not me that have healed you. Your faith have made you healthier and found the way to to health again." So I was looking quickly in a easy way to tell you guys the psychodynamics of a narcissism, and just very quickly, it involves an intense need for admiration, a lack of empathy, and a fragile sense of self that oscillates between grandiose self-inflation and profound vulnerability. This defense structure protects against inner feelings of shame and emptiness, leading to exploitative behaviors, difficulties with healthy relationships, and a distorted sense of reality. So if we look at that, isn't that unfortunately so up to date as a collective? And with all this, this kind of social medias and our attention being so called to the outside world and what everybody think it's cool and it's nice. So the duty towards ourselves, our our higher self, our mission, spiritual mission, gets lost. And we can easily fall into a narcissistic posture. So I think, and later the mentor Joanna is telling us to that we should face life with courage, right? And paying attention to the moral values uh, and the duties that we have towards ourselves and our neighbors. So I just wanted to bring this to our debate because I think it's so important that like more than 30 years ago, we are still as a collective in this narcissistic posture and not paying attention to that. And so we have to pay a lot of attention. We have to pay attention to our shadows aspects, as Umberto was telling, selfishness and pride and all of that, as he cited Kardec also. That's so important that we understand that all this spiritual knowledge is coming to help us, right? To help us develop this. And another point that I would like to hear you guys about and people that are listening to us is that in the parables that Sylvia brought so well, and Jesus was always talking and teaching because he was teaching to the higher self, not to that small ego of the people more than 2,000 years ago. This experience of action and promise, of fact and intention, right? And I would love to hear Umberto about that. For me, of course, the parables were talking about archetypes that we have to realize and express in this world. So when do we make empty promises, right? That and that we don't want to see that we can't fulfill them, or even that if we are psychological mature enough to fulfill these promises, right? Even in a spiritual path, am I able to this kind of commitment, or which kind of commitment I'm able to express or to act in which kind of commitment? I would love to hear you guys about all of this. Don't know, Umberto, Silva, Fabrício, what do you think about that?
Um, I think I'll let Umberto to reply to that, and I will add something else about the shadows that is quite interesting. Over to you, Umberto.
Yeah. I'm eager to jump in. Well, she's really establishing here a very important distinction, not only a distinction, a conflict, a contradiction, a disproportion between promising, promising and doing, or action, promise and action, and fact and intention. These are the words that she chose. So when we check pretty much every spiritualistic author or philosopher in history, in all cultures, we see that they emphasize very heavily the idea that there is this disproportion between our imagination, and because of pride, the notion that we are accomplishing something, or that we are deserving of something, or that we have a certain amount of merits, and the actual consequences and the actual results of our action. And the more spiritualized you are, that's valid for Buddhists, for Greek pagans, for Egyptians, for Babylonians, whoever we are imagining in every culture, we'll see that the more spiritualized you are, the more you do, and the less you complain, and the less you claim that you did. So, be it Socrates or Jesus or Buddha, these spiritual sages and masters, they will spend very little time or no time at all talking about their accomplishments. They will talk about problems, and that's something that we do not like in modern contemporary society, because people who see and point to problems, they are usually seen as a nuisance, a problem for society. You're just criticizing, you're just yelling or something. That can be also if you're psychologically immature, obviously. But sometimes when you criticize something, you're just pointing to a problem that has to be acknowledged and fixed. And that's not a bad thing. So Jesus did that a lot. Jesus pointed to mistakes and problems a lot, very, very frequently. And Socrates, even more than him. So Socrates based his entire approach in pointing to logical mistakes and mistakes of definition and conceptualization in discourse. So he was, in a sense, less practical than Jesus. He was more theoretical, more a philosopher than a spiritual master. Yeah, but they were very similar in the way they saw problems and how to fix problems, the procedures, the necessary processes to understand and to be conscious of problems and overcoming them. They made this process of understanding and overcoming problems the very core of their teachings. And I think this is very relevant, and it is also very telling that Joanna de Angelis does the same. Joanna de Angelis is in almost every chapter, in every one of her books, pointing to one problem, to one thing we are not conscious about, and we should be. And for some people, that may be very theoretical, right? So she's just talking, she's just writing. But I think she's a profound and very fruitful spiritual master, because by means of pointing to these problems or highlighting these problems, she makes us aware of them, and she gives us the first tools, maybe not all tools, but the first tools to handle them and to try to overcome them. So it is an enlightening process. It is an enlightening practice that she is proposing in all of her books, especially in her psychological series.
Thank you, Humberto. It's interesting, and what I want to comment. When I start reading the book, I realized, wow, why did she start in the book talking about our shadows, right? And to your point, because she wants us to expand our conscience, she wants us to bring our shadows into light. And what I want to expand a little bit more what Anna was saying, because she did mention about some beliefs, some feelings that is still part of us, but it's still in our shadow. It's part of our shadows. So, for instance, she talking about a belief that we think that we worth of everything. So how many of us could associate with that? How many of us have gone through situations in our life where we thought like that? Oh, I'm not going to fulfill this duty, or I'm not going to do that work because I deserve everything, and that should be done to me, not me done to someone else. That is an aspect that we all should perhaps reflect on that. Another feeling that she mentioned I think is very familiar to all of us in the humanity, in the society that we're living in. That feeling to possess, to have, not to be, but to have, right? Um, and what can we understand that feeling in relation to duty? That is, it's something for us to elaborate because I was thinking here, she talks about the feeling that we want to possess, the feeling that we want to have, but not necessarily that feeling that we want to be, and what it can relate that into duty. Another feeling that she mentioned also is to make commitments, but do not fulfill our duties and blame others. So again, she brings this up about blame. Two things here. One, we make commitments, but we don't want to do it. There is something associated with that. And the second one is once we're not done it, what we're supposed to do, we then blame others. And one more shadow that was very interesting because that's how she started the book in relation to duty. And she's bringing all those shadows, all those elements for us to address. And another one was we demand um, when it comes to the behaviors of others, but we are very reluctant with their own mistakes. So, wow. So, what does that say also in relation to duty? I think Umberto mentioned that as well. We're very gracious in success, but we turn into be very aggressive when we need to make any effort. So we want an easy success. We want everything easy for us. But then when it comes to demand effort from us, we become something else. What is that saying to us? And what I could associate with that with, I remember when Kardec was saying, he recognized a good spiritist by the effort they do to combat their bad inclination. So again, another duty there, right? A duty for us to combat of our bad inclination, which demand effort, demand sacrifice, demand work, demand duty. Um, and another one, just last one here, because she's almost the whole page was discussing about those shadows. And another one that she mentions about having not taking responsibility to fulfill our duties, taking we we delaying our duties to ourselves, to others, because you in a way kind of like negotiate with ourselves. We are being lazy, or you think that is still that need to be done by someone else, not yourself. Those are elements of the shadows that I think Anna was mentioned that we would like to hear the group because it's important that you look at it. If she talks about humanity, she's talking about people, they're talking about us. So we are in all those elements. And I'd like to open up to others to discuss that part of the shadows that Joanna bring us at the beginning of the chapter.
Well, if I may, I just wanted to say it's very important that Fabrizio could point out all this because Joanna is always asking us in many of her teachings, as Umberto said so well, that she's a teacher that, and her teachings are in process, right? And to make this light of consciousness, let's say, to enlighten us, we need to integrate the shadow, psychologically speaking. And to how can we, as you said, Fabrizio, to combat our bad inclinations and spiritist knowledge tells us to do. But how can we combat bad inclinations if we don't want to see which inclinations are those, right? And if we don't, if we keep protecting ourselves, that's why I think Joanna is asking us to have courage, right? To look within and not outside of us. And I just wanted to love to hear Sylvia and Humberto about that, because when I was thinking about, wow, why is Joanna talking about so much about the shadow, as Fabrizio said so well, and the narcissist posture that we are as human beings, because the narcissist posture is a mechanism of defense. Okay, is one of the one of the big mechanism of defense of the ego, um, and to protect a fragile sense of self, and also low self-worth, and especially a sense of emptiness. I know that this is open for to a very philosophical discussion, Umberto, because we are many people, and we know in psychiatry that we have a it's like another pandemic of depression and anxiety, but people don't talk about that, right? So why do we feel so, why are we feeling such symptoms? And I think Joanna is asking us to pay attention to that, because if we are having, as humankind, at, with everything that we know, with all the technology, all the great achievements of humankind, that of course, in all the arts, the philosophy, all the science that we have developed, what is going on that we feel um, this low self-worth and this emptiness, this lack of purpose and meaning that it's going on nowadays? So I think teachings as such as Joanna's and the Spiritist knowledge that they bring to us all these dynamics of the soul, that we are having such difficulty not to talk, or actually talking about all the parables of Jesus, right? Because Joanna is expanding or trying to help us to understand better, and also joining in spiritist psychology. So I would love to hear about what you guys, can tell us about this. The sense of emptiness and a low self-worth, that I think it's like kind of a global thing, and that leads to this mechanism in all of us, this collective narcissist mechanism, I could say.
Okay, so shall I hand it over to Ian?
Hello, everyone. So when I was reading it, I mean, she starts speaking very much about work, not work generally in professional sense, but work in general, like deeds that you do every day, and how you get on with that. And when I think about especially North European and North American history, it's often kind of put out that there was the Protestant work ethic was one of the reasons why the north of Europe and the United States managed to do so well in the 19th and 20th centuries. And we can see Jesus himself thinks that work is very important. When he was confronted by the Pharisees about working on the Sabbath, he turned and said, well, my Father works every single day, and I follow that example. Of course, if we look at the way that he taught, I mean, he saw the importance of being meek, which I think is very important and very lacking in our society. I think he in the Lord's Prayer when he tells you to treat your neighbor as you would yourself, which is also from Leviticus. That is the base of what we would like to do. How we treat each other is we must do things as we promised, and we must do it to the best of our extent. I mean, Jesus was always working. If we look at the prophecies, we can see Isaiah in Isaiah 52, 53, speaking about the suffering servant, and Jesus was the servant. He washed the disciples' feet. And of course, if we look at how Paul teaches Jesus' teachings, in Ephesians 4, he goes, "You were taught with regard to your former way of life to put off the old self, which is being corrupted by its deceitful desires, to be made new in the attitude of your minds, and to put on the new self." So, I mean, that goes along with all of Kardec's teachings, and I think that we are straying very far from this in our modern world where we have lots of support systems and whatever else. People are often go astray because they're led astray very much easier. They don't have to fight for what they really need.
Does any of the speakers want to take this on?
Yeah, I think Yang just made a cultural analysis of how this individual process that Joanna de Angelis is describing applies to the collectiveness, the collective evolution of humankind. And I agree. I think that the process should be more or less the same. So merit, reward, and I wouldn't say punishment, but reward and setbacks. They will also happen to collectives in a similar way that they happen to individuals. And I think it has something to do with what Anahi just said a bit before about another opposition, another contrast that Joanna is building. And I think she's very dialectical here. And I would love to write or to follow a meeting about Joanna de Angelis dialectics because she's always like a good Platonic person, good Platonic thinker. She's always thinking through contrast and conflict and opposition. And in this chapter, she talks about ignorance and the lack of consciousness as a source of this narcissism, this deluded and proud notion that I deserve better, I am ahead of what I am actually, and the many expectations that you have of well-being and a good life and happiness without actually doing anything for it or without deserving it. And on the other hand, the conscious person, the person that takes responsibility and that has merit and that does something and that is productive and does good and produces a positive environment around himself, this person thinks less of himself or herself and actually speaks less about his or her achievements and is more humble. So the more evolved you are, the more productive you actually are, the more good you do, the less you pretend to be good or the less you expect to receive as a reward, so to say. And as Socrates said, your reward is actually virtue itself. So to be virtuous and to be in the company of people who are also struggling to be virtuous is your reward. There will be no gift, no present for you, but you will feel good because spiritual flourishing is about that. Is about growing and acquiring these tools, and the life will become easier, not because it will have less challenges, but because you will be stronger.
May I say something here?
Yes, Sylvia?
It's very, very interesting, actually, what Umberto was saying about Joanna being dialectic, because she is amazing. I think, and he said this book was published in 1989, and we still back. I think we are a lot more now. I think our society has changed into a lot of the people are becoming entitled. They feel as their right, even what they, they feel they need to receive things. And there are two sentences here on this that I think answers all this question, because she says, they forget that life challenges are courage and moral value, and that we all have undefferable duties to life and to ourselves and to our earthly siblings. No one has the right to benefit without working and exploiting the efforts of others. Honor is the prize that is bestowed on the victor who has worked hard to achieve it. I think in these three sentences, she sort of gives, the idea, and you said, think about it, because she's, in a way, she's saying, you have no right, if you have done no work, to be entitled to receive anything that is the product of other people's efforts. Um, and and she says you have a duty to yourself, to others, and to earthly siblings. All we, in a way, we have a duty to everyone. Whatever we do, even the small things that we can do, it affects other people. An example, a silly thing, but I remember many years ago now, there was a strike for the dustmen. I mean, honestly, how many of us even give a second thought to the dustbin? Nobody. We put the dustbin, the rubbish out, is collected, then we don't think about it. But during the strike, nothing was collected. So you would walk in the street and the smell was appalling, was terrible, because all the rubbish was outside. And then everybody said, oh my God, they have to stop the strike. Let's do something to help with this. And I think this is very clear how we don't care for the efforts that other people make. And no matter what we do, I mean, Umberto, he's a professor. Someone is cleaning the street. I just do my little job, paying people. Um, but every one of us, if we are not there doing the little bit that is up to us to do, there will be a failure. Far ahead, there will be a lack. Someone will miss. And when we do our duty, somebody else will do theirs, and everyone, in a way, we are dependent one another. And I find this very, very important, because it says the honor is the price that is bestowed on the victor that has worked hard to achieve it. So even though we might find, our missions is not that to appear and to be out there, but it's important. Every effort that we make towards a better world, it's better because it helps us and gives us a sense of fulfillment. And I think this kind of feeling empty, and a lot of the problems that we have, depression. I remember many years ago, Divaldo, in a talk he was giving, he was saying that mankind, modern man, has lost the address to God. We have transformed our machines, our technology, but this does not fulfill us. We have lost touch with ourselves and our sense of duty. And I think what Joanna is saying here, go back. Don't be that person who demands that other people fulfill your heart for you. It's your own. And I think Humbert said something as well, that virtue, our virtue, is the price in itself. So whatever work we do to fulfill this gives a sense of feeling self-worth, a sense of worth. And I think that's important. When we work, when we do something, we have that sense, and that emptiness starts to disappear. Thank you.
Anaí?
Sylvia, how beautiful. I was listening to you, and I'll give to Humberto because we want to hear him, since he will not be able to be with us for some time. It remind me, Sylvia, listening to you in the sentence by Rumi, right? Who said, "You are not a drop in the ocean. You are the entire ocean in a drop," right? And I think it's so beautiful. And I think this is the cosmic consciousness that Joanna is calling us from, recognizing our duties, our shadows, something that looks so small in psychological terms, but it's so important, because then we can understand that this ocean, that it's in this at this point at least of evolution, mixtures shadow and light, right, Fabricio? That it's within each one of us. So it's a non-dual teaching, and I think, Joanna, it's Umberto, very, I love when you said, like, that she is very platonic in a sense, right? Always bringing the opposite. But I also think that she has this other saying, that she's both things at the same time, I think, because she's always asking us to understand that we are going towards cosmic consciousness, and that's not a non-dual teaching, right? So it just listening to Sylvia just came to my mind this quote by Rumi. I don't know if Umberto wants to comment on that.
Oh, Humberto, on mute.
Yeah, I just checked Google for a sentence that I'm not sure that is in fact from Rumi, but I also love him. And sentence is more or less like that. 40 sages will change their minds, their opinions, because of one fact, but 40 facts will not change the mind or the opinion of one idiot. So I
I don't think it's his. It's not
I
Rumi.
think it is
Yeah,
very
the other is
broad.
prettier, Umberto. The ocean, I think it's better. It's more
It's
romantic.
prettier, but I think it conveys the same logic, because it's the idea that to be humble, and the sages here represent not only intelligent people or wise people or learned people, but they represent humble people, because to be a sage is not to be learned only. It is mainly a matter of conscience and humility, to the capacity to learn from others, the capacity to sustain an open mind. And to be an idiot in this same way, I think, represents not the unlearned person, the person that studied less, but the person who has a close mind and is not capable or doesn't want to change his mind. And I think this is pretty much the point that Joanna is emphasizing. This ignorance or this lack of consciousness is directly related to the lack of moral evolution and progress. And that's why very similar to Socrates, or also Buddha or Jesus. uh, Joanna links this moral primitivism or this immaturity with the lack of consciousness or ignorance. So to be bad, to be evil is the same as being ignorant or unconscious, to do things without knowing you're doing, or not taking responsibility for what you did because you you're just clueless. You don't know what you're doing. You don't know why you're doing that, and you don't know. Most importantly, you don't know what is good for you. To be ignorant is not knowing what is your best interest, your what is good for you. So because you can't see that far, you only see what you want now, what is good for your body, what is good for your financial situation now, for your name, for your reputation. There's another sentence from Epictet that I just read yesterday for a discussion, and he said more or less, in your control are your choices, desires, or aversions or rejections, or something like that. So your feelings, your sentiments, and your choices, your actions, and your ideas for things, your ideas too. Outside the range of your capacity, outside your control, are your reputation, firstly, your reputation, your name, your business, and your body, your health or your body. And that's very interesting because he's a great sage, and he's telling us something that we do not believe nowadays. We are persuaded, and we have all these coaches telling us all the time that our health, our business, our financial situation are a direct reflection of what we want, of what we do. And that's simply not true, because they are not us. They're material aspects or consequence of our beings. Obviously, there is a very, very, very large influence of our actions on our health, uh, on our financial situation, and you should be cautious, and you should take care of what you're doing for your body or for your financial situation, obviously, but it is impossible to control it. There is a certain level of divine action or social action, authority in these material aspects of your life, and to be uh, to disattach from that is wisdom. It is spiritual maturity to say, okay, I did my best for my health, but I have a tumor and I cannot control it. I will keep doing the best for my health, but I will avoid believing naively that I am the master of the material world. But it is good enough to be the master of your behavior. To be the master of your behavior means that you are your spiritual master. You are accountable for what you are living spiritually in your mind, in your heart, and that's a lot, and that's enough for being happy.
Thank you, Humberto. I'm concerned about time. What I would like to do just to give a few close remarks, because one of the things that I love reading Joanna is one, she get us to reflect a lot. Two, it's an invitation for our self-rediscovery. And three, she always leave some indications on where could we improve ourselves and how can we better choose our own choices. And I'd like to leave those three here with about this chapter. She said, and again, this go back to duty, which is the chapter of the title of the chapter we're studying. She says something like, "How can our duty to life be expressed?" So how can we express a duty to life? And then number one, she said, to be useful in any and every circumstances. Two, to favor progress. And three, to live with dignity. She prompts us to reflect on our shadows, and then she brings indications how can we choose better choices and better behaviors and better thoughts. And in when it comes to our duty, when she says here to be useful in any ever circumstances, that is so powerful. And I would like to leave that with everyone to think about it. How can we be useful in any in every circumstance in our lives? That is an indication for us to start say, okay, whatever I'm going through, whatever I'm going in my life, how can I be useful in any ever way? I leave that question with you, and thanks for taking part. I will say good night to everyone, and thank you for listening. And we will see. Um, I forgot when is the next. Sylvia, can you help me? When is our next meeting?
Yes, the next one will be on the 22nd.
22nd of October.
22nd of October, yes.
Okay,
Not this Wednesday, the next
the
Wednesday.
next one. Okay,
Yeah,
thanks
so
for
it'll be
that. And
Jesus and Joy, actually.
Jesus and joy. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you everyone, and see you in 2 weeks' time. Bye for now.
Thank you. God bless everyone. Bye.
God bless. Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye.